Did they cure death? We don't know! What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. I just watched Maze Runner: The Death Cure. So Maze Runner: The Death Cure is directed by Wes Ball, the same guy who brought us the previous two Maze Runner movies, and I have to be honest with you guys, directing is not a problem with these films. This guy has stuck with this franchise, has done a wonderful job in that category, and has made these movies over what people would think that they are. Because you look at these other YA movies like Twilight and Insurgent and Divergent and Detergent, and they usually don't work, but these movies have worked. If you guys want to know my thoughts on the first two Maze Runner movies, follow that link in the description for the Stardust app. I have already talked about those movies. You can hear my thoughts on there, which one I liked more. But I have to admit, I didn't hate either of them. You guys know how my reviews work. I like to talk about the good, the bad, and then give you my score. Let's talk about the good. As always, Dylan O'Brien, I don't care what people say, I love the guy. I have really come to appreciate him as an actor, and even the movies that aren't great that he's in, he's always super good, so I love seeing him. He's really good here. If you guys didn't know, he had a situation, he had an injury on set, they had to push this movie back. That's why I feel like the box office is not going to be as strong as it could have been, but I think this box office should be strong because this, to me, was a solid entry. Not a great entry, and not even necessarily a really good entry, but a solid entry in a YA franchise. And the reason for that, the biggest reason, is not just the performances, because all the actors and actresses here, I don't really have a problem with any of them. I can't pick out one really bad performance, and that's interesting in a YA movie. But really the thing here is the action. The director, Wes Ball, films these action scenes so well. They're all really cool. The gunshots, the fighting, the one-on-one combat, the train scene, the crane scene. I won't go into any more detail, but those two scenes are really what made this movie entertaining for me. And yes, it definitely has its flaws. I am not completely praising this movie, and it's not even my favorite movie in the franchise, but it continues what we know from the first two movies and caps off a solid YA trilogy. I can't believe I'm talking so good about Maze Runner. Oh, one negative, before we get into the negatives, there's no mazes, and they don't run through them. That's not a negative, I lied. This is not a movie I would recommend you go and spend $12 on. Maybe a matinee. Maybe if you have a movie pass like I do, you should go and watch this movie. Oh, also, if you're a fan of this franchise, I think you'll appreciate this movie. Other than that, if you're over a certain age, and I'm not trying to be ageist, because that's a thing now, and you haven't watched this franchise, I don't think it's worth your money, and I gotta be honest with you guys, I think you should just stay home, maybe watch something else. The Post is in theaters, Phantom Thread, watch an Oscar movie, but if you're not part of this YA, the people that they're trying to capture, and you haven't watched this franchise, I would recommend just don't watch it. I think the biggest problem with this film is it just goes on way too long. You are not Lord of the Rings. You do not have the opportunity to give us 5 different endings to cap off all of these characters. Well, technically to cap off 1 or 2 characters' backstories. It really bugged me because I'm like, all right, if the movie ends here, it's good. Okay, if the movie ends here, it's good. Why are you still going? 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Why don't you just end the movie? And I get it. You had to pull these threads together and make a knot. I understand that. But why set up those threads in the first place if you're just going to give us 20 minutes of a movie that frankly should have been over at the 2-hour mark? It's definitely the biggest problem for me. Another problem, as always, is the dialogue. Some of the dialogue comes off really cheesy here, some one-liners that you're expecting, and the plot twists, to me, weren't really plot twists. I seen most of them coming, but there were 1 or 2 that kind of caught me off guard, and that's the reason why I'm not going to dock it too hard, because there were a couple that I did not expect, I didn't see coming, I didn't read the books, but as a fan of the movies, I feel like I should go back, because I feel like I'll get a lot out of the books. But I don't read. I've never been able to read. I've never read a book in my life. Look, with Maze Runner: The Death Cure, you know what you're getting. Don't expect something that's terrible. Don't expect something that's great. Expect something that caps off this trilogy, gives you the ending that either you were expecting or you weren't expecting, and it's a fun action flick. It's January. We've not really had a horrible movie this January other than the one that shall not be named. Get out of here! I have to be honest with you guys, I was a little frustrated with the ending and I was going to dock it a little bit more, but the more I talk about it, the more I appreciate the way that this was filmed, the action, the directing, and the acting. For a January YA movie, I'm going to give Maze Runner: The Death Cure a very solid score of 68%. It's just another example of why January hasn't been the worst month possible. It's incredible, it's amazing. 2018, you're off to an okay start so far, a lot better than it was last year. So Maze Runner: The Death Cure, I'm so excited I got to talk about this with you guys. I've actually been looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to the end of this trilogy. Thank you guys so much for following me on Stardust, following me on here, doing everything that you guys do, commenting as always. I want to start a discussion if you have watched this movie. What do you think of the trilogy? To see my thoughts, you know where to go. You guys are the absolute best, and I'll catch you later.